Yeah, up front, you can see that I've got my co-hosts in the office, and we'll see if they decide that they're going to participate. We got at least two dogs wandering in and out this morning. I want to talk to you for just a little while about kind of a news development and what I think the implications are for the state of Pennsylvania. So, down in South Carolina, the state legislature, and this would be both houses, they have, like every state legislature in the country except for Nebraska, I think, has two houses, basically a House and a Senate, just like we do at the federal level. One of my co-hosts left. She's bored. Anyway, both houses of the state legislature in South Carolina have passed a bill, and it's pretty straightforward. What it says is it is illegal in the state of South Carolina to perform these so-called gender-affirming surgeries on minor children. Gender-affirming surgeries and also all the other associated gender-affirming care. Now, let's just address this. As with most of this nonsensical woke ideology that is foisted on us, the verbiage is really, really important. I mean, the verbiage is chosen deliberately by the folks that are pushing all of this madness. So it frames the issue. So when you pump a kid full of chemicals and then castrate them and perform all these other hideous operations that I don't really even want to get into the details of, but we're just are really Frankensteinish. When you do this, it's gender affirming. It's not genital mutilation. It's not child abuse. It's not sick, twisted. It's gender affirming, which of course is based on the idea that somehow we have now discovered magically after millions of years of human history that we didn't realize before, that there were vast numbers of people somehow being born into the wrong bodies, whatever the hell that means. I mean, this is madness, and honestly, we're talking about psychosis, but it's being decreed, or they're attempting to decree it, that this is real. So we're not just cutting up a little girl or cutting up a little boy. Somehow we're freeing them. We're affirming something. Okay. So this is sick. This is twisted. There's no scientific evidence of any kind to support this mad assertion that has been trotted out. In fact, there's just tons and tons of evidence that what we're doing is taking kids with serious psychological issues and all sorts of problems, and then we're just making it worse. And on the other side of this, as they become young adults, they realize that now their lives are destroyed. So we have this really sick, really twisted, really evil ideology that's being pushed. And what this state of South Carolina has said is, pretty straightforward, which is, at some point you're going to be an adult, and I guess you can decide what you want to do with your own body, although why there would be a single doctor who would assist you, I have no idea. But basically, okay, you become an adult and you want to destroy your life, I guess that's your deal. But we're not letting anybody do this to kids. Don't care if mom and dad have become woke and think that they should cut up Johnny. It doesn't matter. Until Johnny's an adult, leave him the hell alone. That's what they've done. The governor is actually expected to sign this bill. In fact, by the time you watch this, may have signed the bill. So that's what the state of South Carolina has done. And if you think about it, this is just pretty straightforward. Again, it's all they're really saying is leave the kids alone, man. Hands off. When the guy turns, when the guy becomes an adult under state law, then it's his call on what he does. But until then, all of you back off. So I think for any reasonable person, that's pretty hard to argue with. It seems pretty rational. It seems pretty reasonable. Here's the question I want to pose to you. Where are our representatives in the state of Pennsylvania? Why can't anybody in the state of Pennsylvania trot out this kind of solution? And yeah, look, I know as you're listening to me say this, you're thinking, well, would the Democrats ever go along with this? Would the governor ever sign it? Those are reasonable questions. I'm not sure that those are really insurmountable obstacles. But let's just go with the idea that Shapiro would never sign this and the Dems would never let it actually pass both houses. How does that absolve the Republicans in the House and the Senate of responsibility? I mean, this is a completely moral issue, right? I mean, I get it that politics is about compromise. Politics is also about knowing when not to compromise, right? If you're sitting there in the Senate, you're sitting there in the House, and you're watching this horror unfold across the state. And look, I think a lot of people don't want to deal with the magnitude of this. This whole gender-affirming surgery thing, I can hardly say the words, has become a billion-dollar industry. It's not like a couple of people off in San Francisco are doing this. This has exploded. As disgusting as it is, it has exploded across the country. Okay, so this is huge. And this is about as fundamental a moral issue as you can think of, right? These are little kids being sliced and diced and mutilated. And again, look, I don't even want to go into the details of this in this setting. For those of you who really can stomach it, I would suggest you spend just a little bit of time online and look at the reality of what we're talking about, because we're not only talking about castrating and mutilating kids, but afterward, they do not somehow emerge intact, really truly transformed into the other gender. They are mutilated and sick for the rest of their lives. I mean, you're destroying them, which I think common sense would tell you, but you're destroying these kids. So this is a really moral issue, right? And yet we don't have anybody in the state legislature, in the House or the Senate, with the moral courage to stand up and say, I don't care if you guys, I mean, I do care, but ultimately if you guys decide not to pass it, that's one thing. But I will not sit here quietly. I will not watch. I will not treat this as just another political issue. This is a question of morality. And I'm introducing legislation that says, leave the kids alone. I would encourage everybody watching this to reach out to your state rep and state senator and demand to know why none of them have the courage to stand up and say that. I'll talk to you again soon.